Yellow tape around his back. The fuck?
I'm ashamed to be here. After week 1, I had a lot of confidence. Mahomes didn't play that great. Kelsey played like dog shit. I still dropped a 100 bomb. There's no way my team's going to suck this year. There's no way if my 2 best players are popping out or not doing shit. I'm still dropping 100. I'm fine. Well, we're here. I'm not happy about it. I'm embarrassed, to be honest. Why it's very lucky Saquon did not get in the end zone at the end of the game. But it's okay. Because I don't plan on being back. I'm just truthfully ashamed. It's not happening again, I promise. I'm actually probably not losing another game. We had a pep talk after this week. Kelsey's locked and he's ready to go. Cheers, boys. It's not happening again. I fucking promise it's not happening again. That shit sucked.
Well, we're another weekend. And, after a 2-0 start, I would have hoped to show a little bit more fight than I showed last week. It was a bad week. Really was. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I'm sure that there's a lot of chatter on, how does the Bartu camp feel about his team's performance? And, the only thing that I have to say to that is, cheers, brothers.
All right, hello, and welcome back to the Vibe Report. This is your Week 3 review. Kevin, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. I'm hurting after a loss, but it's okay. You know, we go on. I'm just excited to record another pod, and I'll have to talk about some football for the next hour or so. So
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable to be upset after a loss, and I've felt that way a couple of times this year, but not this week. Before we go ahead and do our thing, of course, as always, I'd like to open it up to the Vibe Report, and we'll check out what they have going on.
Gentlemen, welcome to your Week 4 Vibe Report.
You know, I gotta say it's my honor to be back here with you, co-host. It feels like just a week ago we were sitting down.
It really does. Time flies. Unfortunately, we both have a bad week in fantasy, but that is not to say that next week will not be better.
The burden we pay.
So let's run through it. Starting off with Blue Medical Tent. So the top half of your team, Kevin, I still really like it. You're really happy to see Najee lose. Jalen Warren is, tough competition as he's suffering a hamstring injury right now. Mark Andrews,
Drop them.
drop him, man. It's over. I don't see him coming back. He's been schemed out of the offense. In a points per blocking league, he's doing outstanding. Moving along to Bed Bath & Bijan.
I mean, I think that a week ago this team was a surprising 2-0. They were riding high on the 2-0. Just thrashed last week. And I think that GM Bartu could kind of see the writing on the wall, and he had to make some moves.
Maybe some panic moves, maybe some well thought out stuff by Noah Bartu. We will see. The vibes here, we have no idea because it's a brand new roster. He's only got like 3 guys that he drafted still on his team.
I'd imagine the vibes are high.
I think he's feeling pretty good. Oh, last thing, he drops a brick on the waiver wire this week, both in Cole Kmet and in Alexander Madison. I think he spent like a total of 60 fab.
A cool 60 bomb. Like almost a 40 bomb on Madison by himself.
Yep, and 17. So, all right, moving along to Swifties for Smirnoff, Sam's team.
My opponent.
Here, obviously the Mahomes-Kelsey, the vibes are pretty low. It looks like Kelsey is getting less snaps and less targets than he ever has before. Obviously hoping for a bounce back there. And the rest of the team, obviously Saquon is holding the number 1 running back spot, so you feel super great about that.
2-1 though. I mean, I would be riding the 2-1 high, but I think that the vibes are concerning in this locker room.
I've heard rumors of some trade offers being thrown around, so one can only presume what the vibes are like in that locker room. Would you like to take your vibes? How are you feeling?
I guess so. Moving on to my match or my team. After a rough start, I won't sugarcoat it. It's been, my sponsors have dropped me. We're back to the player-owned cooperative. Hopefully she's Marvin on my deck.
Makes a big trade going into the week, hoping for Marvin Harrison to cover what Mike Evans has been failing to do the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Juwan Jennings last week has an insane blow-up. So I think the bounce back is inevitable. It's just, will it happen this week? I hope it does.
I wanted to get out of the 2 quarterback purgatory. I needed to not have to make that decision. I've made the decision wrong twice. And
It leads to nothing but pain. Moving along to Slim Reaper's Revenge. The vibes here are,
I'd assume high.
they have to
win this week.
They have to be pretty good. He breaks his full losing streak.
Jamar Chase looks like he's alive.
Joe Burrow looks like he can throw the ball, and his hand is not destroyed, so that's good for him.
Team mascot going down. So there's probably
Those are the vibe destroyers of the week, I think.
Below on morale.
Tight end room is a revolving door, but this year it kind of is for everybody. So whatever. The running backs look pretty great. I think the vibes are pretty good here. Moving along to Baby Want Milky, the 3-0 league topping
Goliath.
Just terrifying team to go up against.
Derrick Henry seems like he's going to get his every single week.
The vibes, the locker room has to be riding. It has to be riding high.
Buzzing, yeah, for
Two
sure.
tight ends holding down the base of the team while CeeDee Lamb underperforms has just been statistically remarkable to watch. But yeah, Charlie's feeling great. Not making trades with anybody, which is probably what I would do. Moving on to Mount Matumbo. Breaks his losing streak as of last week.
I'll let you know it felt bad.
I can't imagine it felt good. It felt bad for me.
It felt bad losing to this team specifically.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Singletary did great last week. Kyron dropped a nuke on your head. The bottom half of the team are two guys who came off the waivers in the last week and a half, I guess. So I guess Al's just gunning for some random upside, and we'll see what happens. Moving on to our other 3-0 or 0-3 team, Jefferson Starship. You just have to be feeling terrible. This team looks great, and the numbers have been, you've beat over half the league every week so far. It just hasn't worked out yet.
I think it's kind of kismet that the winner and loser of the first season are in the 0-3 together. It seems right.
And the two Poop Bowl participants are 3-0, and
That feels wrong.
that feels wrong indeed. But yeah, I mean, Jefferson Starship, I think the vibes are pretty good in the future, but so far it's been unfortunate.
Just gotta win a week.
First one down, and I think the domino effect will get started for sure. Second to last, we have Tush Push Kush. Falls to 1-2 last week after losing AJ Brown and just
Not much
having
tush pushing going on this year.
not a whole lot of tush pushing going on. Saquon looks out of control.
You may even be able to say the tush push is dead. No Jason Kelsey. They have the best running back in the league.
They've been going for it, but it's been on like 4th and 1 on the 30-yard line and not on the 1, which is really unfortunate to see.
But I think the vibes are probably the lowest vibes of the league, genuinely. Which crazy saying that as we have two 0-3 teams, mine, myself, but this team just looks rough right now.
You also have here a lot of high draft capital guys that just really haven't paid off yet between Michael Pittman and Sam Laporta. A little unfortunate there, but your running backs have been, picking up where your pass catchers have been falling.
Surprisingly
Just
well.
great performances out of Tony Pollard, which I was totally not expecting this year. And yeah, another 2 tight end team I just noticed. We'll see how that works. And last up, Riley Reed Option, our resident auto draft team, which is really no longer an auto draft team as he made a pretty big trade last week. I think the vibes here are pretty fantastic. You're 3-0. You didn't pick any of your guys. They've been doing excellently. Yeah, really nothing to complain about. Maybe figure out something to do with Zach Charbonnet as Kenneth Walker comes back. But aside from that,
Yeah, I think the only real threat that Howell's team runs into is it looks like it's going to get worse over the year. Sharp comes back. Zamir White has not been the
yeah,
best.
you've got a weak running back room, but the rest of your team. Well, Rashid Shaheed did drop a big old donut last week after several 20-point weeks in a row, which is unfortunate. But he is boomer bust. He's the long bomb guy, so that's gonna happen. The Gabe Davis of the New Orleans offense, as it were.
But you're 3-0, so.
But you're 3-0, so you can afford to figure out what you need to do in the future.
For your team.
Oh yeah. The Masonic Lodge vibes. We heavily underperformed last week, but I think the future is bright here. I think a lot of my guys are in positions where either they did not practice and it's showing, or their quarterback got injured or something like that. So a really bad performance last week against Gabe's team, but we're gonna put up league high this week. I'm not worried. The only other thing on my team is Christian McCaffrey is in Germany, receiving some blood transfusions, the blood of a young warrior being piped into his calf and Achilles tendon. I'm choosing to believe it is because he is a freak of nature and will do anything to get back on the field. We'll see you week 10, buddy.
It seems like vibes are high in the locker room, but maybe a bit lower in the GM room on this team.
We're figuring out how exactly we need to show these guys what they need to be doing, but they have it in them. I truly believe that.
And then final team of the week, we have more love for Cook, 2-1. James Cook looks freaky.
He looks out of control. Like
Aaron Rodgers looked freaky last week.
This is the only team in the league with 2 running backs in the flex. Both of them have been fantastic so far this year. Obviously, you're hoping Kittle plays, but yeah, I mean, all of these guys have been
good team. I don't like Chris Olave. He's middling, I think, especially for how high he was taken.
Is the only one that is not, well, DJ Moore too, actually. But all of these guys have been like at or above projection most weeks. I mean, you've been very happy so far. So, great team. Moving on to your last week's trades. Starting off, we have the newly renamed Marvin on My Back trading with Bed Bath & Bijan. We have Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield for Marvin Harrison Jr. Big trade.
Yeah, I think I said it before. Mm-hmm. Mike Evans has been kind of underperforming. Maybe the year was Chris Godwin, maybe not. But I knew Bartu was looking for a quarterback. Marvin looks like he's increasing his snap share, is looking good. So I kind of wanted to leverage that stack I had, move off the double QB gambit, and have an easier decision made for me in my starting lineup every week.
That's what it's all about, not leaving points on the bench. So, next up, Bed Bath & Bijan had a second trade to Riley Reid option. It is Chuba Hubbard and Josh Jacobs for Evan Ingram, Deebo Samuel, and Zamir White. Another big trade for Noah's squad. He gives up his starting drafted tight end in Evan Ingram, who's been dealing with an injury the last couple weeks, and Deebo, who has also been facing an injury the last couple weeks, for a little bit more depth in the running back room. And
I like this one partially. I think Chuba Hubbard for like Deebo or Evan Ingram is fine.
It's too low for Deebo.
But
it's like Chuba for Zamir White, and then
I think Zamir White and Josh Jacobs aren't the best. It seems like I picked up Josh Jacobs backup.
The Packers' offense has been ass without Jordan Love, and I think it will be better, but we'll see.
Besides that, Noah drops an absolute bag on the waiver wires this week. Cole Kmet pickup seems maybe a bit of an overpay. Alexander Madison.
I thought Caleb Williams threw 55 passes last week for like 38 completions, which is not good. But when you throw 55 passes, it really doesn't matter for the guys that you're throwing to. I mean, he got like 10 targets. If that keeps up,
you're chill.
That's QB1 or Titan 1. I mean, not QB1. So that's $17, and then he spends 36 on Alexander Madison. Looks like the number 1 running back for the Raiders, who look inept at best. A couple more bottom of the team moves, but yeah, those are your major waiver wire moves, pickups, trades of your week.
The vibe report for the week 4.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck.
Thank you, boys. That was pretty interesting this week. There was a couple of things I wasn't prepared for. But either way, it's time for Kevin and I to do our thing. And here we are with the league homepage. Just wanted to do a quick review, take a look at the leaderboard where we are standing. We have 2 teams currently sitting at 3-0. We also have 2 teams sitting at 0-3. We have 4 teams sitting at 2-1, and we have 4 teams sitting at 1-2. Like we've mentioned a couple times, Kevin, a pretty even distribution here. 2 guys at the top, 2 guys at the bottom, and then 8 guys kind of spread out in between. And it just shows how competitive the league is, and there's a couple of teams that we wouldn't expect to be where they are, both maybe higher or lower, but things are pretty crazy this season. And as we look at the recent transactions, obviously there have been a couple of trades that have popped up, and we'll discuss those after. But let's go ahead and jump in here to the scoreboard and take a look at this week 1 matchup. These week 3 matchups. Obviously, as you guys know, I pulled it out. Finally, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase came alive. I scored 116 to Henry's 75. I'm now 1-2 in 8th place, and Henry is 2-1 in 5th place. I feel really good to be able to get a win here. It was a shit show up until Monday night. Henry and I both had very, very sad-looking scores on the board. But Joe Burrow comes out, he revives himself with 31.3 points, combining with Jamar Chase's 29.8 for over 60 points out of the stack. It's finally what I needed. You can see the shit-eating grin on my face. I'm loving it. Devon Achane, James Conner, Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle. Well, I guess not Mike Gesicki, but those other 3 guys all underperformed for me, and we still pull out the win. Devontae Smith, of course, gets murdered by the Saints, that blood-sucking organization. They're all criminals. Quentin Johnson gets the early touchdown before Justin Herbert goes down, and then other than that, that wraps up my scores. And Henry's team wasn't really good at all. You know, you have 6 guys under double-digit points, including the quarterback, the Derek Carr start. He went with it this week. He liked the performance that he saw out of week 1 and 2, and he said, I think that's my guy until I know what Brock Purdy can do. Brock Purdy puts up 31 on the bench, and unfortunately, it wouldn't have even been enough to win him the game. But it would have made him competitive. He would have been over 100 easily. And, yeah, I don't know what else to say. The 49ers offense kind of rebounds here down, and Henry suffers because of it.
Yeah, well, congrats on your first win.
Thank you.
This is just what the doctor ordered for Slim Reaper's Revenge, this Monday night Commanders, Bengals matchup. Burrow and Jamar Chase just absolutely putting on a show. 2 touchdowns for Chase. Burrow had, 3 or something like that. So, pulling it out pretty big. And then, of course, the Masonic Lodge just really, really falling on his face. The whole Derek Carr situation is I started Carr in our Dynasty League over Jaden Daniels. And, it really hurt to watch this week. So, I was kind of having my doubts about the Saints offense, whether or not it was legit, and they go up against Philadelphia's pretty bad secondary and really struggle here, so that obviously hurts. But then, yeah, like you said, kind of just underperformance all the way around. But, Henry's first loss, he can't be too upset with 1 bad week. It happens to everybody. It's going to happen to everybody. He's fortunate enough, though, that he walks away not having the lowest score on the week. So
true.
At least he doesn't have to do that. But still, a really dominant win for Slim Reaper's Revenge, getting you on the board in the W column.
And I would like to point out, there was perhaps a mention of maybe a little bit of a fraudulent win going on here with my seemingly low score, but it was a low-scoring week around the board, and it has been a low-scoring fantasy season. I would have beaten 8 total teams, including Henry, around the league. So, beating 75% of the league, that's no sneak win there. That's earned.
Yeah, coming into Monday night, you might have thought so, but leaving Monday night after a 60-point combined from the stack, that'll definitely give you a solid cushion, I'd say, up against most people. But here's second matchup, Bed Bath & Beyond, more love for Cook, Noah and Alex. Noah falls to 2-1 with a loss here. Alex moves up to 2-1 and into third. Noah falls to 6th with the loss, and getting his first loss of the season, as well as Henry. And another really bad week, lowest of the week. Shout out to Noah. He already sent the video, so that was a good watch on a Tuesday. I was very unexpected. But 137 to 68, second highest score on the week for Alex. The Jets game on Thursday really set the tone, bringing out Aaron Rodgers. Kind of a bold move. I respect it. He's got Jordan Love hurt. Was against Justin Fields. I get it. Makes total sense. Works out for him. Breece Hall, usually pretty consistent. James Cook, pretty consistent. Chris Olave somehow managed to have a solid game in a really low scoring game. So that's pretty cool to note, I suppose. DJ Moore just as projected, Ertz just as projected, and then Zach Moss with 20 and Jerome Ford with 10. So I mean, kind of just all over the place, double digits.
Pretty
everywhere.
consistent, yeah.
Yeah, a couple 20 bombs, a lot of guys over 15. Just a really solid week across the board. No huge games from anybody. 25 from Rodgers is pretty large, but no 30 bombs. Just overall consistency. And then looking at Noah's team, I want to break this down because the Anthony Richardson problem.
I brought it up in the last pod.
And it's really, I mean, it wouldn't have changed anything.
No, obviously, but we had this talk last year. Many times it wouldn't have done anything, but one, it feels better. You need the points if you plan on making the playoffs. Head-to-head matchup, if you're tied with record, it goes to points for. Like, points are important.
It matters. And not only that, but also, if he does switch that, he doesn't have to do the beer chug, which is kind of would have been the lowest
he
score.
would have scored 79 and been 4 points higher than Henry. It's something to note.
Yeah.
I mean, good point, Kevin.
It is. But this also just raises the alarms for the long term for Noah. Because Anthony Richardson, I mean, he's a high drafted, QB this year in fantasy. I know he was drafted by Charlie, but still, he traded for him before the season started, and he's been really bad at throwing the football. Not only that, but Jonathan Taylor is actually unreal still. So he can run the ball on the goal line. They're not giving Anthony Richardson those carries, so
they don't need to. They saw him get a concussion last year. Like, it would be stupid to hand it off to keep the quarterback holding the ball when you have Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, on the 1 yard line, if you're going up the gun, just give it to JT. He'll get it. And but the rest of the guys, just a bunch of underperformance. I mean, Bijan, pretty bad game with only 13, but Zamir White, only 3 against Carolina. We mentioned this last week on the pod. If you can't have a good week against Carolina, he's not going to have a good week ever. So that's really red flag there. Marvin Harrison Jr., he definitely the strongest player looking right now on this team. Catches another touchdown in this game and looking really incredible for his rookie season. Diego Collins, kind of a down week, but still solid. And then 3 guys in this team just there at the bottom. Just a really bad week, and only getting a stick from your quarterback, you're probably just never going to win the football, never going to win the fantasy game if you only have a stick. And not to mention that, but he also got a stick, and the Colts won that game.
Yeah, and that's crazy. Henry mentioned this, and he said, we were talking about it today, after the trade, obviously, and interestingly enough, Noah's team, as it was kind of built not the way it needed to be to have a guy like Anthony Richardson. If you're going to have a guy at quarterback that is going to have the boom potential that he has, but also the bust potential, your team has to be so well-rounded that you can afford those 1 point weeks and maybe still get a win. But he puts 1 point up and you put up the lowest score of the week. And he made the moves. He recognized it. You got to give props to Noah. He said, look, this is not where I want to be, and we're swapping up some things. And so I respect that. But looking at your matchup here, I'll give you this one again, obviously, because it is yours.
So Blue Medical 10, Swifties for Smirnoff, me versus Sam. I dropped this one, fall to 1 and 2, fall to 7th place. Last in the playoff picture, although it's only week 4, obviously. But Sam 4th with the win, moves up to 2 and 1, 123 to 106. That's the final score. Not a bad game for the Blue Medical 10 here. 106 is nothing crazy, but I'm not super disappointed in this. I mean, it's pretty average. But Sam just had some key guys go off, and it just, game kind of got out of hand for me. But looking at his, the Mahomes, Kelsey stack, a little improved this week than it was last week. This is Sam coming off the lowest score on the week as well, so they really struggled in the prior week. Mahomes gets 18, Kelsey gets 7. 25 is not what you want, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
It's serviceable.
It's serviceable, but I still am out on this stack. I think
me too.
Is not going to do it this year.
I mean, look, you take away the Saquon 30 bomb, and he doesn't win this game.
I'm going to go on Saquon in a second, but I think Mahomes can still get it done. But I'm really drawing red flags on Kelsey. And then, like you mentioned, Saquon Barkley, 33 points is pretty obvious and glaring. But he looks like RB1 this year. I don't think this is going to stop at any point. unless of course he ggets hurt. But I mean, he's still really good. They have a good line, a good offense. I mean, they didn't even score that many points, but he broke off like a 70-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, I mean, no, he looks incredible. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying you can't expect a 30 bomb every week.
Oh yeah.
From most guys. I mean, obviously, there's a couple of guys out there that you think of, like maybe Tyreek Hill, maybe Jettas, but even those guys, they're not putting up 30 points every week. Your projection at most is like 25 against a crazy good defense, bad defense matchup. And so if Saquon performs as projected here, 16 points less than he did, he doesn't win this game.
Mm-hmm. So he's got 33 twice and 17 once. So I mean, I don't know what the norm is going to look like for Saquon.
It probably is that high performer Jetta's Tyreek Hill, somewhere in the 20 to 24 point range, and I imagine that's what he'll be projected in most of the weeks where he has a mid to good tier matchup against the defense. But even still, all I'm saying is that Sam a little bit sneaks out one here. He obviously has a good team, but the stack doesn't perform as expected, and Saquon gets it done. I think.
And then, I mean, the DeAndre Swift situation, I think, is also alarming here. I mean,
very much.
He's just not a very good football player. I pointed this out a couple weeks ago, and he struggled, but I think it's a huge game from Adunze.
I mean, if you look at the comparison, Saquon on the Eagles versus last year, Swift on the Eagles. Last year, they had a much better offensive line, obviously. You still have Jason Kelsey, and they've had some injuries and some struggles with offensive line issues this year, and Saquon is still being a top performer.
Yeah. I mean, he is an elite talent. But on the other side of the ball, for me, I honestly had 6 good games and 2 just terrible games that kind of gave me no chance to win. So I was pretty much playing this game with 6 players. So that's why I was kind of not upset about 106, because I get a donut from Mark Andrews and a stick from Jamison Williams. When 2 of your guys do literally nothing, I mean, it's very difficult to win a week. So I mean, 15 from Kyler's, whatever, and then JT with the really solid week at 26. Then Kamara, 15, a little unprojected, and then 15 from Kirk and 13 from Najee. Just terrible games. The red flag's coming out on Mark Andrews. I think Jamison Williams will still be okay. He's shown 2 good games. I guess he shows his downside here. But the Mark Andrews situation is really alarming and something that I'm going to have to address at some point, most likely.
I mean, you don't have another tight end?
Oh, yeah, it's a problem. So something I'm going to have to navigate. I had Mark Andrews last year, and he got hurt at the end of his season and navigated around it, but it's difficult when you have a guy who's not doing anything and it's your only tight end. So I don't know. It's disappointing to see. I'm hoping he comes around because it's still early, but I'm not feeling very confident about it at all.
It's looking unlikely. I mean, the Ravens are off to a 2-0 start, and they've scored plenty of points. 1-2. Oh, they've scored a lot of points in the what was their third loss?
They lost to the Chiefs, and they lost to the Raiders, and then they just beat Dallas.
So they score 20 in a loss to the Chiefs, 23 in a loss to the Raiders, and 28 in a win against the Cowboys. And Mark Andrews puts up 3.4, 9.1, and 0 points. Hasn't broken double digits this season. It's definitely something that you're concerned about.
Yeah. The biggest problem, I think, with that Ravens offense is that Lamar can run and Derrick Henry can run, so they run. And it's an issue. So we'll see.
Definitely, and you've seen that for Zay Flowers a little bit. Lack of receiving volume so far, but they just don't throw it a lot. Moving forward into what I said would be the matchup of the week, and I think for the most part it did hold true. Mount Matumbo versus Marvin on My Dak, which was previously the Visa Cash App Red Bull fantasy team. After this 3rd loss in a row, starting out the season 0-3 and in 12th place, staring down the barrel of what could be another Poop Bowl playoffs run for Eli here, and his sponsors drop him. He makes a big trade, picks up Baker Mayfield, and moves Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans for Marvin Harrison Jr., says, I'm going to start Dak Prescott going forward. I don't even want Baker Mayfield in the equation. And he changes up the roster a little bit after this week. But, in this week, the team doesn't get it done. You see the bounce back down from Baker Mayfield, 8 points. Mike Evans, of course, 3.7 as well. Tyreek Hill without Tua, only 7. Ramondre almost puts up the donut. Absolutely dismal. Tank Dell, 11 points. Jake Ferguson, a really nice 15.5. And Juwan Jennings with the 46.5. Absolute bomb from the top rope, out of nowhere. Who would have guessed that this was going to happen? Not me. In a loss to the Rams, too, which is crazy. And, the thing is if Eli had started Dak, he would he have won this game? He would have. He still loses.
He loses by like decimals.
He still loses. And, of course, you wouldn't have started Jacoby Myers over any of your receivers. So he really didn't have a win under the belt here. He was down early. He was down by a lot. And the projection continually got worse for him, even as Juwan Jennings was putting up points the entire game. And Al's team, if you look at the other side, doesn't really have a good game themselves. I mean, Carson Steele, 8.4, Zay Flowers, 5.3, Javonte Williams, 6.1. There's definitely some areas of concern, but of course, 131, you're totally happy. Lamar Jackson puts up 28 points. Kyron Williams puts up 32. Terry McLaurin finally has what could be a breakout game for him. I mean, he's got a guy who can actually throw the ball now. They win against Cincinnati 38-31, and he puts up 20 points. Dalton Kincaid finally shows something with 13. And then, of course, Devin Singletary continues with 18.8. And combining for Al's first win of the year, he's got to feel good about that. There's definitely some areas where you're worried about underperformance. Possibly your wide receiver 1/2 scenario, obviously with Nakua down. But you get a much-needed win here, and the battle of the 0-3 Bandits is over. And Al texted me privately and said, I need you in the pod to break down or at least disclose who I said was my pick to win this week. And I will be honest, it was not Al. I genuinely thought, based on the matchups and everything at hand, especially the Buccaneers going up against Denver, I thought Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans were going to continue their run. And I thought that Al had a lot of tough defensive matchups. I mean, Lamar and Zay Flowers against Dallas. Cincinnati's defense isn't terrible. I did not expect Terry McLaurin to put up 20. And, of course, Devin Singletary against Cleveland, like putting up 18, almost 19 there. Really impressive performance from all those guys. And, obviously, you got to talk about Kyron Williams putting up 32 against the Niners. Like, tough defenses all around. It was nothing against, Al personally. I just thought that based on the matchups, Eli was going to pull this one out, and it doesn't go that way.
Yeah, this has got to feel good for Al. I don't think he had broken 100 yet. I know he didn't week 1. I don't think he did against me in week 2. If he did, he was like barely didn't. But I mean, this has got to feel good. 131 is a really nice score. And then, for Eli, the trouble just continues, man. 0.3 from a running back is like unheard of. That almost feels impossible. But here we are. But yeah, you mentioned the Mike Evans thing. And I mentioned Patrick Surtain last week on the pod. I said, it's either him or Chris Godwin. And you'll notice when we look at Charlie's matchup, Godwin had a pretty nice game. So that is the Patrick Surtain effect. It is real. But it stinks, man. You score 46 points from one guy and you lose. That definitely hurts. I can't imagine the pain that's going for him. But, the rough season goes on for Eli. I wish him the best as he continues to cope with the pain.
Yeah, there's not much else to say there. Unfortunately, another loss, but we'll move on here. The Baby Want Milky matchup, I'll throw this your way.
Baby Want Milky versus Tush Push Kush, Charlie and Wyatt. Charlie rolls on another dominant win, 147-99, moves to 3-0, first in the standings. What a season he's putting together so far. And then Wyatt with the loss falls to 1-2 in 10th. Fails to break 100 this week. Highlighting the Charlie's team, 3 guys primarily. Josh Allen, 38. I mean, he does it again. I mean, time and time again, he shows how good he is at football. I mean, it's unreal. Nothing needs to be said about Josh Allen, to be honest, at this point. Derrick Henry, I just mentioned this. They can run the ball. They ran the ball all over Dallas. He went absolutely off.
2 touchdowns, King Henry.
Yeah. I mean, he's getting old, but he still delivers. Pratt Robinson and CeeDee Lamb, underperforming games. Brian Robinson was terrible last night. I don't know if you noticed that, how bad he was running the football. He got in the end zone.
Extremely inefficient.
Yeah, he had like 15 for 33, something trash. But he got in the end zone, so he gets some points there. And then CD in a really bad game. They threw the ball a lot. I don't really know what happened here, to be honest, but he'll be fine. And then Godwin, like I mentioned, got in the end zone. And then the Dallas Goedert thing is just unreal. 27 points. He had I think it was 10 catches for 170 yards, which is insane for a tight end. There was a play down the stretch where he caught the ball and ran for 60 yards, which is
and almost got in the end zone. He was 2 yards away from getting in the end zone.
Yeah. He fell up just shy, and it's dude, it's a white tight end. He's running for 60 yards on your defense. I don't know what you're doing. But, a really huge game from several guys propels him up to the highest scorer of the week. He finally got it. I think he'd fallen second twice. Or did he win the first week? He won the first week, didn't he?
Who?
Charlie, did he get highest scorer first week?
He did get the highest score first week.
Okay. So twice in 3 weeks. That's pretty impressive, if I do say so myself. So congrats. That's $20 for him. But Wyatt with the 99. Jalen Hurts struggles again. Been kind of a letdown this season. Still no A.J. Brown, so you hope that with him returning, he'll start doing better. Aaron Jones looks solid. Pollard, kind of a down game, but he's been good so far. Rashee Rice seems like he's going to be a star. Tyler Johnson, it's an interesting start, to be honest. But he puts up 5. And then Sam Laporta actually got hurt in this game and had to exit. I think he's got some sort of sprained ankle. We'll talk more about that later. And then 30 mid-games from the flexes. Just can't get it done. Not a bad score at 99. He goes up against Charlie, who drops 147, and just kind of gave him no chance here. And, falls to 1-2 because it.
I mean, yeah, you lose by 48. It's tough. Sub 100 points is never what you want, especially when you have 2 guys combined for 44. But you got a lot of underperformance, a lot of guys under 10 points, multiple guys around that 5-point range, and there's definitely some concern on Wyatt's team. Bad game from Jalen Hurts, bad game from Tony Pollard. Tyler Johnson is in there because A.J. Brown is out at the moment, and then, of course, Sam Laporta, the huge underperformance, especially how highly drafted he was. And then you got Keon Coleman finally getting in the end zone, still only with 9.4 points. He has 9 points in back-to-back weeks. This kind of seems like he's going to be between 0 and 9 for the time being. Even though Josh Allen can put up 40 points himself, Keon Coleman only puts up 9. And then Brian Thomas Jr., who's a rookie, and he seems pretty good, but it's just not enough. Charlie rolls on, and might I add, I will give some props here. I mean, it's a scary team. You have guys like Brian Robinson, CeeDee Lamb underperform, and you still put up 147. It's definitely a scary team. Yeah, I mean, tight end putting up 7, I wouldn't say is necessarily an underperformance. For Brock Bowers this year so far, yes, it is, but you will have those kinds of, game scripts where the tight end just isn't heavily involved, and putting up 7 points in a blowout loss to the Panthers is still not that bad.
I also want to point out one more thing. Keon Coleman caught one pass. By the way,
for the touchdown.
For
Yeah.
4 points. Yeah, 9.4 points came on 1 catch. So, close to another donut. Although, I mean, I can't say that because he scored. But still, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and another unfortunate matchup here for somebody, our last one of Week 3, the Riley Reid option bests Jefferson Starship. Another unlucky loss for Bennett. He falls to 0-3 in 11th place. And something interesting that I noticed earlier today, I'll have to point out, the former champion and a former loser are both tied at 0-3. And quite interestingly, it just goes to show you that, anything can happen to anyone. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have a guy who has lost the Poop Bowl and another guy who almost made it into the Poop Bowl last year at 3-0. Anything can happen in fantasy, and it's not about what you've done overall. It's about what you've done for me lately. And lately, those 2 guys who put up bad seasons last year, finishing 12th and 10th, are currently in 1st and 2nd.
That is the beauty of redraft. Right there. Fresh start.
Yeah, and
Possible year to year.
Tal gets the dub. He moves up into 2nd place, so a 5-point dub, and it really came down to Jaden Daniels late at the end. He scored a bunch of points in that game against Cincinnati. ended up giving Tal the dub. If we look at the rosters a little bit more, you've got some key underperformance on Bennett's team. C.J. Stroud with only 7 points against Minnesota, and their defense looks real. Minnesota looks like a sleeper team. They are 3-0, and they look strong. Unfortunately, Rachaad White underperforms again. He's been one of the most inefficient running backs in the league. He's averaging 2.9 yards per carry right now and is really not that involved in the receiving game either, not nearly as much as he was last year. Justin Jefferson, a solid performance with 20. DK also with 20. Malik Neighbors is the truth. He puts up 28.2 against Cleveland. Got the burps from this Guinness. 28.2 against Cleveland, which is awesome. And then Jerry Jeudy on the other end of the ball in that same game only puts up 8.7. Of course, Bennett starts. He does not start Deontay Johnson, and he mentioned this to me at Wyatt and Sydney's wedding shower last weekend and said, I don't think I can trust Deontay Johnson. He just hasn't performed for me what I needed this year. I'm going to start Jerry Jeudy for the consistency. But I know as soon as I bench Deontay Johnson, I'm going to lose, and if I would have started him, I would have won. And exactly as he calls it, Deontay Johnson puts up 26, would have given Bennett the win here. And if we look at the others, it is the Andy Dalton effect, and at least he knows he can start him going forward, but it sucks to go to 0-3 here, and we talked about this, but looking at the other side of the ball, Jaden Daniels on Tal's team, 32 points on that Monday night game. Josh Jacobs underperforms with 5. You've got Zach Charbonnet coming in as the second-string running back while Kenneth Walker's injured, putting up 25. Amon-Ra with 20. Stephon Diggs with 20. And then you've got some underperformance at the bottom of the team. Kyle Pitts with 8. Not really looking incredible. He's looking better than he has in years past, but again, kind of a bust tight end. Somewhat highly drafted, although year in, year out, he continues to drop in drafts. Rashid Shaheed puts up the donut, and then Brandon Cooks with 3.4. 27.9, of course, from Chuba Hubbard on Tal's bench, but gets away with the dub here. Really, the sneakiest win of the week. Pulls it out on Monday night by 5 points because of one player. And hats off to Tal.
Yeah, absolutely. Hats off to Tal. It's been great. Great run for him, and this just, when things are going for you, they're going for you. If you need 27 from your quarterback on Monday night and things are going for you, you're probably going to get it. So congrats to him. I just think it's funny that Juwan Johnson got a donut last week. He starts him again, gets another donut. So I imagine his tenure is over. Hopefully Njoku is back for Bennett this week, and he can get off of that, because that's a terrible train to be on. And also just I feel like tight ends this year are all bad. We're looking at these. The only good one was Goddard. Every tight end stuff.
Yeah. I'm satisfied right now so far if my tight end is getting 8 points. Mike Gesicki put up 8.6. Mike Gesicki put up 8.6, and that's the highest score from a tight end I've had so far this season.
Yeah, it's terrible, man. I don't know what's going on with the tight end.
And I had guys on my team that were top 10 tight ends last year. At the start of the season, I had Cole Kmet, Dalton Schultz, and then after week 1, I dropped Cole Kmet and picked up Colby Parkinson. And of course, Colby Parkinson, young guy, but Cole Kmet and Dalton Schultz were both top 10 tight ends last year and not doing shit for me.
No consistency this year. Look at Mark Andrews, dude. That's a guy who has finished tight end 1 in the past, and he has given me 12 total points through 3 weeks.
Oh, I know. It's rough.
Pretty tough times. Yeah, it's rough out here.
But either way, we move forward into our Week 4 matchups here, and of course, as always, we've got me at the top of the lineup against Baby Want Milky. I am 1-2, and Charlie is 3-0. And it is currently a pretty close projection. Right now it's 117.8 to 121.9. I will say I don't expect Devontae Smith to play after that hit and the concussion he suffered. He is more than likely going to be out for a couple of weeks, which will leave me to sub in someone else, and definitely not going to be projected as high. But I'm going to have to make that decision. There may be a trade in the works that I'm trying to get done that may help with that. We'll see in the long run, though. I am nervous about this game, I will say. However, I do want to point out I do have some pretty good defensive matchups. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase against Carolina, and what did we say, Kevin? If you can't perform against Carolina, you can't perform. That is the best defensive matchup this year. I'm expecting the stack to combine for a lot of points in this one. I'm going to need it to beat Charlie. Devon Achane against Tennessee, which is all right. James Conner against Washington, which is also all right. Devontae Smith won't play, of course. We've got Mike Gesicki also against Carolina. He may get involved more. Jalen Waddle against Tennessee, and then Quentin Johnston against the Chiefs. Those flex 2 option guys could get subbed out for some of my injured players who might be coming back, but we will see. Now, looking at Charlie's side of the ball, he has... Yeah, go ahead.
Matchups. I just want to point out, you got Joe Burrow, Mark Chase going against Carolina, and Gesicki going against Carolina. With Andy Dalton, maybe, we just saw the Cincinnati secondary get completely exposed by Jayden Daniels. Maybe Andy Dalton can do the same.
This could be a
Get
shootout.
This game into a really big, it could be a shootout type situation again for the Bengals, which obviously means a lot of fantasy points there. But you never know. Something to be hopefully excited about, though.
I'm very excited. And yeah, that's a really good point. But looking at Charlie's team, I see a couple of good defensive matchups. I also see a couple of matchups that are quite favorable. Looking at the tough ones, you've got Josh Allen against Baltimore, who is the one of the better defenses, surprisingly, this year. They've come out and they've shown, even though they are 1-2, they've held all of their opponents to under 30 points so far. And they've played some pretty good teams. You've got Derrick Henry on the other side of the ball in that game against Buffalo, who also has showed off a pretty good defense so far. And then you've got Chris Godwin against Philly. We just saw a couple of Saints players underperform there. However, Chris Olave put up a good game, so maybe the same thing in store there. Brock Bowers against Cleveland. Cleveland's got a pretty strong tight end. I mean, not tight end. They've got a pretty strong defense, but he is tight end 2 at the moment, so we'll see what he can do. Dallas Goedert against Tampa Bay. Historically, in the past couple of years, they've had a really good defense. They haven't been showing it as much this season, as much as they have their offense, but he's tight end 1, and with the injuries that the Eagles have at receiver, you expect him to get a solid amount of points. And then you've got JSN against Detroit, another good defense, and we'll see. I mean, the Seattle passing offense has looked awesome this year, but it's almost all gone to DK Metcalf, which is why he is so high. And then he really only has, in my mind, 2 favorable matchups. You got Brian Robinson against Arizona and CeeDee Lamb against the Giants. Those 2 games could get ugly, especially if Jayden Daniels looks as good as he did against Cincinnati. And I would say, obviously, aside from Josh Allen, those are probably the 2 guys that I'm most worried about. They're definitely looking to bounce back from their scores last week, and I think those could be the difference makers.
Yeah, I think I just want to highlight, I think you did a good job covering there, so I just wanted to add on the Brian Robinson point. This Washington-Arizona game, I think, has a very good chance of being a shootout as well. That Washington secondary is
Toast.
terrible. Arizona's defense is not good either, and Kyler's more than capable of exposing Washington's secondary. So I think, if they need him to get down to the goal line, Brian Robinson probably can fall in the end zone yet again, which is making him like a consistent RB2 right now, which is exactly what he's been. He's RB16. So, a big matchup for you going against the guy that's put up the biggest numbers this season, as you're aware. So,
This is David versus Goliath.
Yeah, it'd be a good statement game. Coming back from 0-2, get your first win. Now all of a sudden you're playing the first team on the board. To get a win here, getting yourself back to 2-2 would be a great statement game. So, big opportunity for you to get back into it.
I agree. I'm hoping to get back into the mix here and get back to even on the season and see how things can fare for me going forward. But we got to take it 1 week at a time and one matchup at a time. And now we've got your matchup next. I'll throw it over and let you discuss.
Yeah, Blue Medical Tent versus Bed Bath and Beyond. Me versus Noah, 6-7 in the standings. 1-2 versus 2-1. Noah's coming off the... Wait, this is a weird trend going on. I'm just now realizing. Noah just scored the lowest amount. I have now played Al following his lowest amount and Sam following his lowest, and now Noah. That's all 3 of my 4 games.
Do you want to know something?
Since it's occurred, it's all been my opponent the following week.
To make that even more interesting, let me back out here. If I can take you on a quick 2-minute spill here. Our first beer chug was Al, right?
Yeah.
Who played Sam. Our second beer chug was Sam, who played Noah.
It's weird.
Our
No.
Our third beer chug was Noah, who played... Oh, sorry. Did I get that wrong? Our third beer chug was Noah, who played Alex. So it just broke. Damn. I was really hoping that it was going to be...
It did just break. But still, though, I mean, that's two pretty weird coincidences going on. But regardless, I mean, we did just see... I mean, Al didn't have a great bounce back against me. He just bounced back well this week, though. And then Sam had a great bounce back following his chug. So
Yeah, you're right.
there's not really a trend continuing following that. But hopefully it continues this week.
Hey, I will mention, though, we have not had a double beer chug yet. Everybody has bounced back after their beer chug, and nobody has had back-to-back low-scoring weeks. Sam did that a couple of times in the first 10 weeks of the season last year, so good sight.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so we'll see if that continues. But just looking at this matchup, Noah's team looking a little bit different. I'll go over mine first, though. I've got Kyler against Washington. I kind of just prefaced this. He doesn't... I'm expecting this to be a shootout. Washington's defense doesn't look good. It hasn't been good in a couple years. They're still rebuilding it. Their secondary hasn't been good. So I'm really expecting a big game from Kyler here. I still trust him. I think he'd be a solid performer this week. Jonathan Taylor against Pittsburgh is definitely a little concerning. Pittsburgh's defense is really nice, but he gets the ball so much. He just had 24 carries or something like that this past week. Trey Sermon, the RB2 on that team, had 2 and a touchdown, so he actually poached a touchdown with 2 rushes there, but he gets literally 96% of the RB carries for the Colts, which is why I love him, is because he's getting the ball. But we'll see if the volume can get there for Jonathan Taylor or if the defense
Tough matchup against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. Alvin Kamara against Atlanta, not a very good matchup either, but like I kind of said, Alvin Kamara just kind of gets his because he's so active in the passing game, and I think that'll continue regardless of the matchup. Drake London against New Orleans, also not a very good matchup. We just saw the Eagles kind of struggle. Devontae Smith had a decent game, but that's only because he scored, so I'm a little worried there. Although Dallas Goedert had a huge game, so maybe. We'll see. And then Jameson Williams against Seattle, I think he can succeed there. And then Mark Andrews, I mean, he's against Buffalo. It's a bad matchup, and he's sucking. So definitely worried. Christian Kirk against Houston is a okay matchup, and then Najee against Indianapolis is actually a great matchup. I think the Colts have one of the worst rush defenses in the league, so hopefully he can get something done there at the bottom of the flex. But it's also Najee Harris. It's not really the most exciting of players. He just kind of slowly gets up to 12 points, and you just take it for the week. But for Noah's team, he acquires Baker Mayfield. He is not playing Anthony Richardson because he still has Anthony Richardson on the bench against Pittsburgh. I think that's a pretty good call. We'll see if his trend of choosing the wrong quarterback continues. I think with Baker playing Philly and Anthony Richardson playing Pittsburgh, I think that's probably
The right matchup?
Yeah, but you never know with fantasy thing. Weird things happen. But like Derek Carr just struggled against Philly, even though I don't think that secondary is really good.
No, they're not.
But Bijan against New Orleans is okay. Josh Jacobs against a strong Minnesota defense. We'll see how that goes. That's a very tough matchup. Nico Collins against Jacksonville. I think that's a really good matchup. Mike Evans in Philly is solid. Brenton Strange. I think it kind of depends to see if Evan Ingram's going to be playing. I don't know if he's healthy or not. And then Ladd versus Casey and Chuba versus Cincy. I don't know. I'm excited about this matchup. I think there's a lot going on here. Noah's coming off a really, really bad week, but he's 2-1. So I think I need a get right game for sure. I don't want to start falling, too heavily to the negatives. I've kind of had a lose one, win one, lose one right now. So it'd be nice to sort of correct things and get back to the W column. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll see how it goes.
Unfortunately, it wouldn't be correcting things. You would be following the trend of lose one, win one, lose one, win one.
True.
But
yeah.
You obviously want to get back in the win column. Yeah, absolutely. I will say I think you did a good job breaking this down, especially the matchups. And I'll give you my pick 3 on both sides of the ball of who I think are going to be the key guys to watch out for. On your side, 2 guys that I think could potentially perform under what we may think is Jonathan Taylor. Like you said, he gets the volume, but Pittsburgh has shown that they have one of the best defensive lines in the league, and I think that he's going to get the volume, but it matters whether or not he can capitalize on it. Secondarily, I think Mark Andrews, of course, he comes off the donut. You need points out of the tight end position. You can't afford to keep taking donuts there. we need to see a bounce back against Buffalo. And then lastly, somebody on your team that I think could overperform, like you mentioned, Kyler Murray against that Washington secondary. They are really bad. He's projected 22.7. I think it could get even higher, potentially up near 30. And you're going to need it. In my mind, I think that Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans both have bounce-back weeks, and those are two of the three guys on Noah's side of the ball that I think are key guys to watch out for. Obviously, he goes out and he trades for him. I do think Mike Evans, like, looking at what is happening right now, he's wide receiver 40. He's going up against Philly, who is, somewhat of a favorable matchup. I don't like their secondary at all, coming off a bad game. He needs kind of a statement piece. I think this is your classic Mike Evans big game, and unfortunately for you, it just comes right in time for when you play him after the trade. And then lastly, I will say, I think Bijan Robinson against New Orleans, they have a sneaky good defensive line, at least from what I've been watching in the game so far. Obviously, their secondary held up well against Philly, but they've shown some weaknesses at time. And I think those three guys on Noah's side are going to be the make or break of whether he puts up 125 or whether he puts up more like 85.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I will say I'm happier to see now that I'm not facing Marvin Harrison this week, because originally Noah just had him, but instead he creates the stack, which I think is a good play. But it makes me feel better that I can have Kyler and not really worry about Marvin Harrison effect of, the PPR effect where the receiver can outscore the quarterback. So that's a little nice for me to look at. I'm a little relieved that I can cheer for Marv this week. So I'll take it and just hope that Mike Evans stinks. You never know, I guess. Chris Godwin's looking good again.
I mean, yeah, Chris Godwin, he's having a career season, but, I mean, I just have a feeling that this is one of those Mike Evans weeks, if you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I had him last year. He's a hound, dude. He's a dog.
Moving on to our third matchup of week 4 here, we've got 2-2-1 teams right around that upper middle tier of the league standings. More love for Cook versus the Masonic Lodge, third place versus fifth place respectively. 125 to 118 is your current projections. And as we look at the matchup here, I'm going to look at the right side on Henry's team first. I think that there are a couple of things we need to watch out for. Brock Purdy is questionable, and I'm not quite sure exactly what that injury is, but he's going up against New England. Now, historically, New England has a good defense. Unfortunately, we saw the Jets go out there and perform well against them, and I think that could happen here. The 49ers do really need a bounce-back game after 2 bad losses to the Vikings and the Rams. But we'll see what he can do out there. We've got David Montgomery against Seattle. Of course, you have Jordan Mason again against New England. 2 big guys in that matchup. And Brandon Ayuk. 3 big guys on the San Francisco offense on that matchup. And with how poorly San Francisco's been playing, it's really kind of a surprise that Henry is 2-1. I mean, he has a good team overall, but looking at some of the other guys, you've got Devontae Adams against Cleveland, which is, a tough defense, but more importantly, Trey McBride with the concussion, he's probably unlikely to play, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know the last time that a guy suffered a concussion or went through concussion protocol and then was able to play the following week. So Henry is going to be looking for an option at tight end if he hasn't already. And then, of course, we've got T. Higgins. I think in this Carolina game, obviously T. Higgins didn't show up against Washington, but with this secondary, T. Higgins really needs to get on the board. He's wide receiver 101 due to injuries and not really getting anything done. And then Jaden Reed against Minnesota. I think, obviously, there are a lot of key matchups all across the board here for Henry, but obviously I'm doubling up on my obviously's, but I think the 49ers team is what is most important to watch here for this game against Alex. And looking at Alex's side of the ball, at the moment he is going with the start of Aaron Rodgers, which is an interesting play. Also, he has Breece Hall in there and James Cook, number running back 5 and 6. Really good matchup for the Jets against Denver. However, their defense kind of showed up against the Bucs in week 3, so I'm interested to see what happens here. As we look further down the board, we've got Chris Olave in the rivalry matchup against Atlanta, DJ Moore against the Rams, who's looking to bounce back, and then George Kittle, who is also questionable but expected to return against New England, may counteract some of those Brock Purdy points, but coming off an injury, I wouldn't expect much. And then Zach Moss in Carolina, obviously, we've got 2 players on Cincinnati here who have great matchups it depends on which one's going to get the most points. Unfortunately, it's seeming like Zach Moss is probably going to be the guy, especially if it doesn't end up being a shootout and it ends up being a blowout. But I'm interested to see. Should be set up for a good game, and it might end up being our match of the week.
Yeah. Just off the top, I don't think either of these tight ends are going to play this week, personally. I really definitely don't think McBride's going to play.
No.
I think Kittle is probably one more week away from getting back. So these definitely change. Well, he's got Zach Ertz. Alex has Zach Ertz to move to, and Henry would have to make some sort of waiver transaction. I doubt he makes a trade. It just doesn't feel necessary. But, yeah, this should be a good matchup. Two guys that are 2-1. Losing's not the worst thing, obviously. If you're 2-1, fall back to 500. But of course, looking for that strong 3-1 start. I think anybody in this league would take that with a smile on their face. So, best of luck to these guys. This should be a good matchup. Two guys that have been great so far this season.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing really more to be said, but here you are for our next matchup.
Moving to our next matchup, I've got Swifties for Smirnoff and Marvin on my deck. Sam at 2-1 and Eli at 0-3. Eli actually projected to win this one despite the record and the standings by 3 points of 115 to 112. He is going around with Dak now. He trades Baker Mayfield, so he no longer has that situation going. I also got an empty spot on his bench. I just noticed looking at it, but going through the matchups here, Dak versus the Giants feels like a solid matchup. The Giants just aren't a good team, so you got to imagine they're not very good. And, of course, Dak is more than capable of beating any defense at this point. He just exposed Baltimore. Had a lot of garbage time, scored a lot of points, still lost. The ETN versus Houston is a team that used to be a really bad rush defense, but I think they've kind of improved. And Jacksonville's offense just doesn't look very good right now, so... we'll see how the ETN play goes. We'll see if he can have a better week this week. And then the Ramondre donut, 0.3 in my book is a donut, against San Francisco, which is an even scarier matchup than the Jets. Although we did just see Kyron Williams have a very good game, 30 bomb to be exact. So Ramondre needs to bounce back, but definitely another bust potential play there with Ramondre in the RB2 spot. Tyreek Hill against Tennessee. This is a really bad defense. But Skylar Thompson has proven to be...
No. Skylar Thompson went down with injury. Yeah.
Tim Boyle. Yes, sorry. Tim Boyle is the next man up.
You will not be starting Tim Boyle. I watched... Obviously, I have HN, and not to interrupt you here, but I watched probably 50 minutes out of the 60 minutes of that game, especially after Devontae Smith got injured. That was where most of my focus was.
That's terrible.
It was on the middle TV for a long time, and then it was on my laptop next to me in the living room, and... It was not a fun thing to watch. Skylar Thompson could not hit a pass, and then after he got injured, Tim Boyle was maybe the worst quarterback play that I have ever seen. It wasn't like the Mac Jones game where he threw one pass, because he just didn't throw the ball in that game. This game, Tim Boyle threw the ball, I think, 14 times or 15 times after Skylar Thompson got injured, and completed a handful of them, but they were all checkdowns. It was all checkdowns, and not even to HN for the most part. Obviously, HN puts up 6 points, but you have got to go out and sign a veteran free agent quarterback right now, or you have to make a trade for one, and they have to start for you in week 4. If you have any desire to make the playoffs, and I imagine you do, you're one of the highest salary cap teams in the league, and you have many stud players like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, and everybody else on the defense that wants to win. Nobody wants to just tank and give up on a season. You need a quarterback.
Yeah, not to mention the money they're paying Tua, just to sit on the IR.
Sorry, not to derail you there, but...
No, it's okay. There's a reason why Tim Boyle's been a perennial
shitter
string quarterback throughout his entire career, so he's not a guy that you can rely on. It is Tyreek Hill. I doubt that Eli's going to bench him, but Tyreek has been terrible this season. That's no fault of his own, but that's another reason why Eli's off to an 0-3 start, is because his first-round pick has been more like an 8th-round pick, unfortunately. The new acquisition of Marvin Harrison Jr. against Washington, I kind of already touched on this when I was going over Kyler and my matchup. This is going to be a boom game. Yeah, I would be scared if I was Sam to see Marv this week. He's going to have a big game. Jake Ferguson versus the Giants. He's got the stack with Dak. He scores sometimes. We'll see if he can get in the end zone. Tight end normally sucks. So a touchdown is a win. And then Tank Dell versus Jacksonville, who really just struggled against the Bills. Different team, but Tank Dell looked more involved this past week, so maybe he gets involved again. And then Jawan Jennings, I imagine, is just a placeholder to see on the health of Debo and Kittle. If Debo and Kittle are out, we'll see if he can do it again. I don't know what the predictability of Jawan Jennings is. I don't know how to predict it. We'll see if he can have another 46 bomb in him. I doubt he does, but maybe he has another good game. On the other side of the ball, the Mahomes-Kelsey stack once again against the Chargers. Not a bad matchup, not a great matchup by any means, but definitely sort of more in the mid-tier. We'll see if Kelsey can finally get more involved or if he just continues to stink. And then Saquon against Tampa Bay. I don't know if matchup matters at this point. They're going to score. He probably gets in the end zone. Probably scores a lot of points. DeAndre Swift, I think he's terrible. He's got the Rams. Not a very good defense, but Swift is also kind of bad, so I don't know. See. Garrett Wilson against Denver. Like I've mentioned plenty already. Patrick Surtain against Denver. This is a pretty bad matchup for Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, so I think he's going to struggle this week. Courtland Sutton against the Jets. He's got Sauce Gardner, so I think he's going to struggle, unfortunately. George Pickens against Indy is a pretty solid matchup, and then Khalil Shakir against Baltimore, which is kind of a tougher matchup, but it is Josh Allen throwing him the ball, so he might be okay. Based on Sam's matchups, I mean, this is pretty rough to see, unfortunately. It's just kind of just bad luck, especially in the receiving room. But, I think this is a good matchup. Eli really, really needs to win this game. We've mentioned falling to 0-4 is really, really dark. You can still come back from 0-3. You can still salvage your season for sure at 0-3, 0-4. And then at 0-4, you also start to really question the talent on the team. Is maybe there's something more wrong with this team. So, big matchup for Eli. Really needs to win this one, and Sam would definitely take a 3-1 start for sure after being so bad last year. So he's turned his season around.
Yeah, I agree, and this is kind of like you said, a crucial matchup for Eli here. Obviously, Sam wants to win this and get to 3-1. 2-2 is not horrible. You can afford a loss, but you don't ever want one. Eli needs a win. We talked about it, in the last week's pod. Staring down the barrel of 0-3 is bad enough, and then if you have the chance to potentially get to 0-4, you're now starting to look at. What are my chances of making the playoffs? Because I've got to go on a stretch of runs. You can't afford at 0-4 to ping pong around and go win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Like, you have to go on stretches throughout the rest of the season where you win 3 in a row and get to 3-4, and then lose 1 and then win 2 in a row and get to 5-5, and then win 2 in a row and lose 1 and get to 7-6, and then you've got a chance of maybe getting to 8-6 or 7-7 at the end of the year. But at this point, Eli is looking down that situation, and if he can get this win here, it'll be off to the right start, and the season is far from over. But you need this dub, and unfortunately, I won't be in town to watch this one with Eli and see how this turns out. But I'll be watching from a neutral site down in Florida, and I'll be after the first week of a victory for my team. I've made the decision to take the Slim Reapers Revenge Squad down to the beach, really give Devontae Smith some extra R&R. We're expecting him to miss this week, so I'm planning a trip for us just to go down and relax and hopefully bring the spirits back up. Looking at our next matchup here, in our 5th matchup of the week, we have Mount Matumbo versus Jefferson Starship, and finally, Bennett is projected to win a game. I think he may have been projected to be out last week, but it ended up going the opposite way. Bennett here at 0-3, really needing a dub. We just talked about the same situation with Eli. Bennett is really in the same boat. The teams are different, but it's looking the same, and the projections are almost the same, 115 to 109 instead of 115 to 110. Looking at the matchups here, we'll look at Al's side first. Obviously, Lamar Jackson against Buffalo is one you're going to want to watch out for. He's been performing really well. Solid percent of Al's scores so far this season. You've got Kyron Williams, who also has been a huge part of Al's performance. And then we have Devin Singletary, who has been good, but he's got a tough matchup in Dallas. We have Terry McLaurin against Arizona's secondary, and if this ends up being a shootout and Jaden Daniels gets the ball to him, he could score, again, another 20 bomb or more. I think Jalen Tolbert is an interesting start here against the Giants. It seems like that's what Al is stuck with at the moment. There may be some changes based on waiver moves, but not really what you want to see.
Zay Flowers on his bench currently.
Zay Flowers will probably get to start here. I can't imagine he'll make the start of Jalen Tolbert. That would be a crazy move to make. Then again, you down here, you have Dalton Kincaid against Baltimore, Javonte Williams against the Jets, and Carson Steele against the Chargers. 3 mid-tier matchups, but starting 2 running backs in your flex in a full PPR league, especially with the lack of receiving volume that both Javonte and Carson Steele have showed so far, you really are going to want some touchdowns in this game, especially if you're going to get a win and get back to 2-2. I mean, Al is staring down the barrel of a 1-3, which is not nearly as bad as 0-3, but if Eli wins, Bennett wins, we'll have 3 teams at 1-3, and obviously down there in the gully, you really are battling for everything. So Al would love to get this one here. He is projected under, but looking over at Bennett's team, he's got some more favorable matchups, you might say. C.J. Stroud against Jacksonville. They just got blown out by the Bills. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs against Seattle. Rashad White against Philly. He has not been efficient or good in fantasy so far. Maybe he can bounce back. Jettas against Green Bay. I think that he's going to score some points there. Of course, Green Bay has really good secondary with guys like Jair Alexander, but they've been a little bit weaker so far this season. You have DK Metcalf against Detroit, which is another somewhat tough matchup. Juwan Jennings against Atlanta. I mean, if Njoku isn't ready to go and Bennett has to start Juwan Johnson here, it's not really going to be what you want. He just put up back-to-back donuts. He's projected 4.8 points, and yeah, you are projected to get the win here, but like I said with your matchup, you can't really afford to not get any points at the tight end spot, and yeah, tight end hasn't been great this year, but 7 points, 8 points, that shit matters. Like, that's important. There have been multiple games this year where that could have made the difference. Yeah.
Especially for Bennett. I mean, he just lost by 5, but he got a donut from Juwan Johnson. So yeah, those 7 points, they can win you a week for sure.
Malik Neighbors against Dallas, really kind of a tough matchup here, but he's been awesome so far. Wide receiver 1 for a rookie.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Dude, wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So, I mean, it's going to be something to watch here. And then, of course, Jerry Jeudy at the flex 2 spot against Vegas. He kind of needs him to score. I really expect him to sub in Deontay Johnson and him to get the start here, especially after that Andy Dalton game. And Bennett's projection will probably go up even more. And I also expect him to probably make a waiver move for a tight end. I hope to not see Juwan Johnson starting in this matchup. But this is what it looks like as it stands now. You got anything to add?
No, I do agree that I think he goes with Deontay Johnson against Cincinnati. I've stated earlier that that game could be a potential shootout with Andy Dalton. Not to say Andy Dalton is an elite QB, but he did look really good in Week 3. So, yeah, this is a big game for both guys. Obviously, when you're under 500, the games get more important. So, Al wants to continue his trend of winning, coming off his first win. See if he can go from that 0-2 start to a 2-2 start, of course. And it's just had bad beats after bad beats.
It's been brutal.
Yeah, I said for Tal, when things are going well, things are going well, and for Bennett,
when things are going bad.
Yeah, when you're unlucky, man, because this team's doing pretty well every week. It's just,
all around, yeah. His lowest rated position player is Jerry Jeudy at rank 41. Like, you look at any other team around the league, you've got multiple guys in the 50s and 60s just because of how bad everybody's been performing this year.
Yeah, it's rough, so we'll see if he can bounce back and finally get that lucky matchup he's been waiting for and just finally get in the win column. But that'll take us to our final matchup of Week 4. Tush Push Kush and Riley Reid option. Wyatt versus Tal. Wyatt at 1-2 in 10th, Tal at 3-0 in 2nd. Projected to win is Wyatt 1-2.
I might add this.
What is going on?
This is my pooper matchup of the week.
I'm kind of stunned Tal is only projected 98. I guess because Kenneth Walker,
is projected to come back.
Projected to come back. so Zach Charbonnet will no longer be there. But he has Mixon on the bench. I'm just going to go under the assumption that Mixon is back. And
It's going to be
Charbonnet's
more
not
like
playing.
105 to 110.
Yeah. Okay. So that updates that. Yeah, that updates that. So 110 to 105 is more realistic protection. Still favors Wyatt. But since I was already talking about Tao's team, I'll just continue. Jaden Daniel against Arizona. I've mentioned this game several times. No more need to talk about it. Joe Mixon against Jacksonville. James Cook just had a solid game. I don't think that defense is very good. So we'll see if he can get it done. Zamir White against Cleveland is...
Whew! That is bad.
He just sucked against Carolina. I don't imagine he's going to be any better against Cleveland, and I just don't think he's a very good running back in general. So, yeah, Amon-Ra versus Seattle. He'll be just fine. Stephon Diggs versus Jacksonville. I think that's a good matchup. I don't think their secondary is good. Unfortunately, he will have to double down on the Texans in Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, but you got to do what you got to do. Kyle Pitts drafted team after all, so like it is what it is. Kyle Pitts against New Orleans. He's been okay this season. He's averaging 8, which has been fine at tight end, I suppose. He does have potential for a touchdown, I think, with Kirk Cousins, so maybe he gets the end zone. Rashid Shaheed, fresh off a donut, goes into Atlanta. He's the big play guy on this team, the boomer bust player. That's fine. I think he's going to be a good flex option every week with that boomer bust. And then Brandon Cooks against the Giants is...
Not what you want.
interesting pick. He's got Ridley on his bench as well. I assume he probably goes to Calvin Ridley against Miami. That's what I would do at least. But anyways, we'll see what he decides to run out there. But honestly, not bad matchups looking top to bottom there, especially that Jaden Daniels matchup. I think they're good QB matchups. You can score a lot of points. Then finally, our last team, Wyatt here, Jalen Hurts against Tampa. I think that's a fine matchup. Jalen Hurts has been struggling this week. We'll see if A.J. Brown comes back. I don't think he's going to play this week. He's on his IR as well. That's where he is. Yes, I'm looking at his bench. I don't see him, so I don't know if he's questionable or out. I don't think he's projected to play this week, though, so he does not have the stack, which stinks. But we'll see if Jalen can get it done without him and without Devontae Smith. So they're definitely very hurt there in Philly. We'll see how this affects Jalen Hurts. Aaron Jones against Green Bay. He's been solid all season, honestly. I'm not too worried about him against anybody. Tony Pollard against Miami. It's actually pretty bad rush defense, and I think they're going to... I think they're going to blow them out, but then again, it's Tennessee. I mean, I don't know who's playing QB for Miami. So
Will Levis is bound to fumble and throw at least one interception.
Yeah, and somehow make the game close, even though they're playing a third-string QB. I don't know what's going to happen in that game. Pollard's coming off a bad week, but... we'll see, I guess. Rashee Rice is currently wide receiver 2. He'll be just fine. His matchup doesn't matter. He has Mahomes. Brian Robinson against Houston. Brian Robinson's been solid. I feel like he's a very solid, consistent floor play. We haven't really seen his ceiling yet. He's still a rookie. Obviously, he's so early in his career that it's kind of hard to get a good read on him, but he seems like he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for Jacksonville for a long time, so... If Trevor Lawrence can eventually step it up and get his head out of his ass, maybe he can improve, but we'll see. Isaiah Likely, man, that hurts me to look at because I have Mark Andrews, but, he's been the better guy. He's been the better tight end in Baltimore so far this season. We'll see if that trend continues. And Michael Pittman against Pittsburgh and Sam Laporta against Seattle. I don't think Laporta's going to play. He has an ankle sprain, so we'll see if he subs him out or not. And Michael Pittman's been really bad this season with Anthony Richardson, but... Overall, if I were to pick here, I do genuinely think that Tao falls finally this week. Just given sort of the matchups, the player to definitely to keep an eye on, I think is going to be the X factor for a second week in a row for Tao is going to be Jaden Daniels. Can he have another 30 bomb? If he does get the 30 bomb, I could see Tao definitely winning this game. But without the 30 bomb, I think I kind of lean Wyatt with this one. Kind of getting back to the W column, going 2-2. And Tal get maybe his first loss here, just based on matchups and sort of, where the vibes are at for me personally. But this should be a good matchup, and I'm excited to see if things can continue for Tal off a strong start.
Yeah, I have to agree with you here. I do think that Wyatt is the favorite based on the matchups and what the teams look like at this moment. I will say, though, I do think in my opinion, this is going to be a quarterback showdown. I think it's going to come down to Jalen Hurts against Tampa Bay, and I think it's going to come down to Jaden Daniels against Arizona. We've mentioned it many times, like you said, but the Washington-Arizona game could end up being a shootout, and Jaden Daniels could put up a bomb. We just saw Jalen Hurts struggle and only put up 8.4 points without Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, even though Dallas Goedert almost put up 30 himself. Without those two receivers, especially if A.J. Brown doesn't play, can Jalen Hurts do it? I mean, he's throwing to guys that I've never even heard the name of before. And we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, that will wrap up our final sixth matchup for this Week 4 slate that we've got going here. And we'll go ahead and dive into a little bit of injury talk and whatever talking points that we may have addressed so far. Do you want to kick it? Actually, no. I will kick it off. Yeah, unfortunately, Devontae Smith goes down. He's dead. I mean, for all intents and purposes, dirty play by the Saints. It should have been blown dead. I don't know what to say here. If you've seen the play, Devontae Smith catches maybe an 8-yard pass. He gets tackled by the cornerback right in front of him, starts getting pushed back, and genuinely 3 seconds of real time goes by where he's getting pushed backwards 5 or 6 yards, and in that situation you blow the play dead because forward progress has been stopped. There's 2 guys on him by the time that he gets 5 or 6 yards back, and then he gets hit from behind by a Saints defensive lineman in the back of the head nonetheless, knocks his helmet off, smacks his head into the ground, and then, some people didn't see this, I saw it today this morning, a replay of it, after Devontae Smith gets hit in the back of the head and knocked down, a different Saints player comes in and dive spears at Devontae Smith. Thank God only hits him in the shoulder pad, but inches away from hitting his bare head, which is already lying lifeless on the ground. Disgusting, dirty play, bounty gate. I want every Saints player ejected and banned from the league for life. But on a second note, can Devontae Smith be reborn? Is this the revenge season?
He's a small guy too, so I'm honestly kind of shocked it's not worse than it is. Hopefully he's only out for a week, but yeah, in concussion protocols he goes. So not expecting to miss too much time, but I mean we'll see how bad that head injury is. But going down the line here, Austin Eckler, concussion. I don't know if anybody's starting him, but he looked really good on Monday night until he exited the game with a concussion. Trey McBride, a possible concussion. Something to monitor. He is in concussion protocol. I don't think he's going to play this week. The CNC injury may be worse than we thought. I heard on Twitter that he went to Germany to see a specialist, so he's going internationally to see a specialist. I guess his Achilles problem could be worse than we thought. We may not see him until after the bye, which would mean he doesn't play till week 10, potentially. That's not confirmed.
Yeah, and I was going to add on to that. Yeah, speaking to him visiting a specialist in Germany, I saw a video today from a different doctor who was talking about what this has meant for players in the past who have done a similar thing, and generally when players go and see the medical practice that this specialist works at, they're getting an evaluation to see if stem cell injections are the right move to heal the injury. If that is the case, stem cell injections are promising but a little bit unproven at the moment, and so the projection is, like you said, potentially not until after week 10, but if the damage is severe enough, they could just keep him out for the rest of the regular season. And this is combined with the fact that he's seeking potential stem cell injections after they've already given him multiple STR injections into the wound, which are a steroid, some sort of modified steroid injection that helps muscle regrowth and tendon growth, from what I saw. So already going through that appears to not be working, and now seeking stem cells, which kind of seems like a last resort as a potential to keep playing this year.
Yeah, this is potentially the largest 101 bust in history. I mean, if he actually is out for the rest of the regular season, it definitely is. He didn't play a snap. He was picked number 1. I mean, no fault to him. I mean, it wasn't a bad pick at the time, but wow, it is bad. Bad situation there. Moving down the line here, only a couple more. Sam Laporta, low ankle sprain, not landing on IR. TBD how long he's going to miss. I imagine he does not play at least this week, though. I included this in here because I think it's kind of funny, but well, not funny, wrong word. But Adam Thielen, hamstring injury. Did you see this?
Yeah, it was bad.
It was like
it looked like the
long
stereotypical old man injury.
Oh yeah, it was the definition of like, dude, you need to hang it up. He caught like a really electric touchdown.
Great catch too, incredible
Oh, it was a
catch.
great play.
Hit the ground and then just lied lifeless on the ground for 30 seconds and then reached down and you saw him like sit up and grab his hamstring and
Dude, you reach right for it.
yeah, for some reason the end zone cam, the guy who was manning it, had it like right on his face and you see him just like grit his teeth as he reaches for the hamstring and I thought genuinely, I said it on the couch, I was like, torn hamstring right there. I know it, like I've seen that a couple of times before.
Immediate hamstring.
And obviously
That's the most, like, old man, dude.
he avoids the tear, or at least the full tear, because he's able to get up and walk with the help of a couple other guys and then walks off under his own power. But pretty severe injury for somebody of his age and kind of increasing the Deontay Johnson stocks in my mind.
Yeah, oh yeah. Adam Thielen is old, but still a reliable.
We saw him last year. He
receiver.
finished, I believe, as a
Yeah.
top 24 wide receiver.
I don't know if he finished there, but he was there.
He was for a long time.
Yeah, he was at a point he was relevant, and then at the end of the year he had fallen off. But yes, he has proven that he can still get it done occasionally. But man, he's getting old, and that hamstring injury definitely showed. And our last one here is Justin Herbert reactivated a high ankle sprain. Test showed negative. He could be back next week, but yeah, he did exit that game with an injury. So we'll see how that affects. I mean, I don't really know who you're starting in the Chargers, anyways. Vlad McConkey, I suppose.
Noah is.
But yeah,
I'm starting
he's
Quentin Johnston at the moment.
Okay, well then I guess we'll see how that factors in. The Chargers are just feels like a wasted season at this point.
Yeah.
And it's only week 3, week 4. But yeah, I think that does it for us.
Yeah, that does it for injuries. I mean, I've got a couple of talking points that I've added. Just as a note, the first roommate rivalry of the 2024 season is over. I have bested Henry in a Monday night blowout between my two stack players. Nothing really to address here, just kind of wanted to put it out there. We had a couple of roommate rivalry games last year, and we will have at least one more this season. Moving into the next point, Charlie's team looks unstoppable, and my main question is just how. Like, how could this have happened? We let it go too far. The Josh Allen gambit has gone a step beyond where I was willing to allow it. There's nothing I can do, of course, but I mean, he just looks like the strongest team, and obviously currently is the strongest team. Speaking of the other 3-0 team, Tal sneaks out another W. He moves to 3-0. Really strong showing out of the auto draft team. And there's nothing really more to be said. He's hoping to get another win here in week 4 and move to 4-0. So is Charlie. But two teams that were really bad, and they're looking strong. And then
I think that's, sort of, obviously the auto draft just picks the best available player if it matches your starting lineup. And I think that's kind of what Charlie did too, and just kind of make a roster that way. And it seems that
it's worked out.
This season, at least so far, that has definitely been the strategy. Yeah. And two, they've both avoided significant injuries. Although Charlie's been down Kenneth Walker, but still, he's managed to get through there with the two tight ends. And yeah, it just seems maybe that was the strategy this year, I guess. We'll see if that continues, man. But yeah, 2 3-0 starts from maybe guys we weren't expecting, to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. And then speaking on the other end of the board, you've got 2 winless teams left, Eli and Bennett. And, I asked the question, do they deserve to be there? I think in Bennett's case, certainly not. He's been robbed twice that I know of, and I don't know about the week 1 game, but on Eli's team, you can maybe say he deserves to be there. I really liked his roster after the draft. He picked a bunch of guys that I was thinking about and potentially going to take if they had fallen to me in the right spot. But unfortunately, he has a couple of guys like Ramondre Stevenson who are just showing out as a consistent underperformer. And then, of course, you had the quarterback flip-flop for the first 3 weeks. Obviously, Tyreek Hill with the Tua injury. And he's 0-3, so we'll see if they can bounce back, but off to a bad start. And then in that same talk about the current records in the league, we've got 8 people at 1-2 or 2-1. Huge pile up in the middle of the league early on, and you could say it might be a little bit surprising. I mean, in years past, I think I remember a season, maybe year 1, where we had like 4 people at 3-0, which was really crazy. But yeah, I think that it's really anybody's game at this point. Obviously, nobody's out of it, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the season holds.
Yeah, as am I. I'm always, I'm in several leagues, and all my leagues, I always like to see how many teams are still undefeated and how many teams are still unwinning. I don't know how to properly say it. I haven't won a game yet. Yeah, yes, thank you, winless. And to just kind of see, sort of the differences. And honestly, 2 undefeated teams seems to be the most that I have.
Really?
That I know of. Yeah, genuinely. In our dynasty, there's 1. My family league, there's 1. My Dayton league, there's 0. So, I mean, it's interesting that we still have 2. But we'll see how long that trend continues, and it's definitely always fun to monitor how competitive this league will be. I'm sure it's going to be equally as competitive down the line here. See if there's any spacing in early front runners this season.
Yeah, but that should do it for us. Thank you guys for watching here on Behind the Lines, your Week 3 review. And I wish you all the best of luck in Week 4, unless you're playing me, of course. And Charlie, I hope to take you down, you tyrannical Josh Allen supporter.
Yeah, same to Noah. Best of luck to everybody except for Noah. But best of luck to you. And
thank you, sir.
Good pod there.
Good pod, Kev.
Hope everyone has a good week of fantasy this week. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers, fellas.